Hey everybody, this is Andrew from T is for Tech, and today I'm taking a look at this accessory for the DJI Osmo Pocket. And this is made by a company called StartRC. So it's STARTRC, startrc.com. And it is a Z-axis stabilizer for the Osmo Pocket. So if you don't know what this is, I mean, you can kind of see a picture there of, what it is actually. So if you have the Osmo Pocket and you use this at all, right, it really is stabilizing a few different axes of the image, right? So if you tilt the gimbal from side to side, right, so it kind of tries to keep the horizon level on the video, right? If you move it kind of forward and back, right, it tries to do the same thing, right? So it tries to keep, let me flip this around so maybe you can see this a little better, right? So side to side, forward and back, right? So any kind of motions that you have here. So you can swivel this thing all around, and it really tries to keep the camera pointing in the same direction. If you have this on follow mode, right, keep the camera kind of pointed in the same direction. Now, what is not so great on the Osmo Pocket, and really any handheld gimbal out there for the most part, is when and if you're just standing still doing this, you'll get a very smooth image, right? It can correct for, quite a bit of movement and make that smooth. Now, generally, you're trying to do smooth pans, you're trying to do those sorts of things, really smooth motions. But if you're walking or you're running, right, your arm is kind of acting as part of the stabilization, right? So you're trying to keep the Osmo Pocket or any gimbal from bouncing up and down, but ultimately you're going to get a little bit of this in there, right? So you're going to get an up and down bobbing movement in the motion of the gimbal. Your arm is kind of moving up and down, right? Long story short. So to correct that, what can you do, right? Well, you can try to walk really smooth, and as you're walking, kind of use your arm to kind of try to keep it as stable in a vertical axis as possible. But obviously that's hard to do. There's all sorts of things like ninja walking and just really walking without doing a lot of the up and down motion. There's some techniques that you can try in order to get that to be a little bit more smooth and not that bobbing up and down motion. So what a lot of companies have done, in recent years is created this sort of another stabilizer just to handle the up and down movement in the gimbal, right? So, and they call it a Z-axis stabilizer. So in this particular situation, they say it can increase the stabilization by up to 30, or they say by 30%. I would read that probably as up to 30%, right? It still depends on how you, how rough you are with the Osmo Pocket, whether or not, you're going to get, as much stabilization. But basically the way it works is there's a spring in an arm, and as you're moving the handle, it kind of isolates that from the actual Osmo Pocket, so it absorbs some of that up and down motion, right? So that basically spring dampener is smoothing out that. So they're saying, it's used to reduce bobbing during walking or jogging, running, etc. And what's kind of cool about this one as well is it has a few different sorts of adapters that you can put on it. So it has an ability to put like a foot, right? So if you have kind of a collapsible foot that you want to put on the bottom of it, it has a phone holder, so you can actually hold your smartphone on there as you're doing recording. So if you have something such as the Wi-Fi adapter for the Osmo Pocket, then you can kind of wirelessly see the video on the phone on the back while you're doing it. So we'll take a look at this and see, kind of how we can set it up. And then in a subsequent video, I'll probably do some recording with this and show a little bit of the footage. I may not show the footage in this one just to try to keep this video a little bit shorter, but we'll see. I'm saying this is an unboxing, but I already opened the box and I couldn't get the stuff. I couldn't get the stuff back in the box, so let's pretend that I just opened this up for the first time. Really, what you have inside is a bag, a storage bag. You get your kind of instructions. and then you get some different stuff here. So we'll take a look at that. So this is a nice little bag you can store it in when you're not using it. But what you get, oops, there's a few different things. So there is sort of a lanyard thing that you get with it, so you can hook this onto the case and then have, you know, like a little bit of a snap release. So if you want to carry it around your neck or carry it holding on your arm or shoulder or something like that, you can do that, right? And this has the attachment mechanism to hook it to the case, etc. So that's kind of cool, but I don't really care about that right now. What I want to do is take a look at the actual device. Now, what's kind of cool about this one is that it does look kind of like the case that comes with the Osmo Pocket, right? So that kind of gray plastic has that little kind of like a rubbery retention strap that you can put on there to hold the Osmo Pocket in place. And what's cool about this, I really like, is that once you mount the Osmo Pocket on the Z-axis stabilizer, you can use this as the case for it, right? So you don't have to keep taking it in and out of this. The Osmo Pocket will kind of fold into it and act as a case. So that's really convenient if you're going to be using this and you're kind of out and about. You don't have to keep putting the Osmo Pocket in and out of this thing. You can just leave it mounted in there. So you'll see on the back side, this is the adjustment mechanism for the strength of the spring. So it comes with a little Allen wrench here, and you can use that to kind of tighten or loosen the spring tension. Have a mount for an accessory. So for instance, you know, it comes with a few different rubber washers and this kind of screw mounts that you can use to mount like this aluminum phone adapter on the back. All right, so you can put your phone in there, mount it to the back of this. There's a tripod mount on the bottom, so you can put like the little tripod feet if you have those, or mount it to something else. So there's a couple different ways you can mount things to the Osmo Pocket stabilizer itself, or mount this to something else, right? So that's pretty cool. So what we'll do is kind of just open this up, right? So right away you'll see this arm kind of pops up, right? And it has tension on it, right? So that's the spring in the center. I don't know if you can see that. So there's a spring in there. And that spring is what kind of puts the tension on this arm to hold up where you mount the Osmo Pocket. So as you can see here, right, so this is in the shape of the Osmo Pocket. If you look at the Osmo Pocket, right, it has that kind of curved back. So what we're going to do is basically slide this in there. Now, it's not super tight, and it does have a little bit of a rubber. I should take this off, I guess. So it has a rubber back, like kind of like a rubber piece on the back that it'll help hold and keep the the Osmo Pocket inside of this band, right? So I'm assuming you mount it somehow like this, right? You probably don't want to go down too far because you want to have your buttons still available to turn it on. When you do this, you'll see like the Osmo Pocket comes down, and then you can move this around and it kind of dampens the movement of the Osmo Pocket itself, right? So the idea is that you hold this kind of like that, and you have a grip on it, and you can still kind of walk around, do your motion, do pretty much everything you would normally do if you were just holding it by your hand, but then you have this added dimension of stabilizing the vertical up and down movement. So that's cool. So if we turn this thing on, I mean, you could still do basically everything that you normally would do, and then it kind of will, as you can see, you can move this around and it will stabilize that vertical movement. Now obviously it's still going to move around, but it's hopefully smoother than if you were jiggling it around with your hand only. So if we turn this off, and then it will go back into the storage mode. And then if you look here, we can just basically kind of slide this guy down and into the case. put this on there, and then it's stored. And if you want to have a little bit more added protection of the gimbal head, I have this is from, I think it's I don't know if it's, yeah, what is it? PGY Tech. I did a review of this in another video, and it's basically just a gimbal head protector. So if you don't want to have it and this still fits within here, you know, that still will work if you want to store the gimbal with this sort of thing protecting it even more. But I don't think you necessarily will need it, because once it's in here, yeah, I mean, I don't know, you might still want to kind of have something to protect this, because this will move around a little bit, but just know that this will fit. All right, so this PGY Tech gimbal head protector also works with this case, and that's nice, right? So that's basically how that works. And now if we want to, we can put this on here, and so do this, right? So you can see we can put that screw mount on the back, and then we could screw this on as well. And then you can hold a phone in there. So say for instance you want to hold this is a Galaxy Note 10 Plus. Basically you can do something like this, right? So you can have this mounted. You can see you can have the phone there, gimbal like this, still be able to view what's happening on the gimbal. I guess if we were doing this, I would have to do this. Let's see how this all works. So if you're going to do this, you have to kind of slide this guy down just a little bit, and then you can probably kind of figure out the best, yeah, so something like that, right? So you can still use the wireless adapter at the bottom. If you just give it a little bit of room, kind of, it still all clears. And you can turn this on. So then once you do that, right, so you have the Wi-Fi connector on there, and you set this all up, then you can basically use this with the phone on the back and see it. Now, if you're doing it like this, then obviously you start to have a little bit of problem here, because you don't have as much of a grip then. So then what I would do in this case is then use my Manfrotto little tripod on the bottom to give me a bigger handle, right? So let me zoom this out just a little bit. So let me see if I can do this. Okay, so then this is what you got, right? So you have tripod on the bottom, the Z-axis stabilizer, and then the Osmo Pocket. So now obviously this is starting to become quite a contraption, but I guess the cool thing is you can do things like this, right? So you can add the monitor, you know, via your phone here. You can put a tripod on the bottom, and you can create, you know, quite a little bit of a recording setup. Now, even with the smartphone adapter, then you also have another place you can mount something else. So if you had some sort of light, or I don't even know what else you might want to put on here, but if you had something else that you wanted to connect, you can connect that as well. So many ways to customize this, and just overall, I think a pretty cool product. So if you don't want the phone on, then you can remove the phone and then still have either this on a tripod if you'd want, right? Or remove that as well, and then you're back to this. Obviously you cannot store this with this on the bottom, so we would have to take that off before collapsing it back and storing it. So if you're looking for that added Z-axis stabilization, remove some of the ups and downs and bumps when you're walking and shooting video with this, I think this is a super cool option. And it has quite an ability to add additional items to the whole package, and it's just really cool, I think. So I will link to this in the description. You can get this on Amazon. I will follow up on this video in the future when I get a chance to go out and shoot. The weather's been a little bit not so nice around here, but I will go out and do some video, probably with and without this, just so we can take a look and see how good the actual correction or the actual stabilization effect is when using it in the field. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post those below. Please like the video if you thought this was useful. Please consider subscribing to the channel. This is Andrew from T is for Tech. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.